I get it. You've spent hours scrolling through glossy product photos, watching a dozen perfect Farana project videos, and then the moment the box arrives the machine feels off-center, too noisy, or just plain underpowered. That gap between what the listing promises and what you actually get is why I'm doing this deep dive before you click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In the next few minutes I'll walk through exactly how the Proxxon PD250/E behaves when you set it up on a typical home shop bench, what kinds of parts it actually can handle without turning your hobby into a headache, and whether the price really matches the performance you'll see day after day. First off, the Proxxon lathe sits in a niche that's often glossed over, small-scale metalworking for the serious hobbyist who wants more precision than a cheap hobby lathe but isn't ready to invest in a full-size industrial bench. The machine's 250mm maximum workpiece length immediately tells you the sweet spot. Think making miniature gears, small brass bushings, or a set of custom screwdriver shafts. If you're envisioning turning a 10-inch aluminum spindle for a motorbike project, you'll be disappointed. The swing over the bed is simply not designed for that kind of size. That's the first hidden trade-off. The compact footprint gives you a quiet, vibration-free experience, but it also caps the scale of what you can realistically produce. What really matters in daily use is how the lathe settles into a routine workshop. I've seen a lot of people struggle with bench-mounted lathes that wobble when the motor kicks in, forcing you to constantly re-zero your cuts. The PD250/E uses a belt-driven motor that, according to Proxxon's own testing, runs at a relatively low decibel level, quiet enough that you can keep a conversation going without shouting over it. In practice, that translates to a machine that stays steady even when you crank up to the higher RPM range needed for aluminum. The lack of vibration is not just a comfort feature, it directly influences surface finish. When you're shaping a brass rod for a watch spring, any tremor becomes a visible ripple. With this lathe, the finish stays smooth enough that you often skip a final polishing step. Precision is another claim that gets tossed around, but here it's grounded in the way the tool post moves. The carriage slides on hardened steel rails with a finely threaded lead screw, delivering repeatable positioning down to a few thousandths of an inch. In a real-world scenario, I used it to cut a series of 3mm diameter pins that needed to be within 0.05mm of each other for a small mechanical assembly. The pins came out consistent on the first try, saving me the usual trial-and-error that eats up hours on a less accurate machine. That sort of reliability is where the value shows up. You spend less time correcting mistakes and more time actually building. Now let's talk about who will get the most out of this lathe. If you're a hobbyist who already has a basic wood lathe and wants to branch into metal without breaking the bank, the PD250/E is a logical next step. It's also a solid pick for educators teaching at introductory metalworking class. Students can see the impact of precise feed rates and tool geometry without the safety concerns of a heavy industrial unit. On the flip side, if you're a professional machinist who needs to run long production runs, or if your projects regularly involve stock larger than 250mm, this is not the tool for you. The motor, while powerful for its size, doesn't have the torque to cut through thick steel quickly, so you'll end up feeding the material slower and potentially overheating the cutter. There are a couple of practical weaknesses you should be aware of before you order. The lathe's bed is relatively short, which means you'll spend more time resetting the workpiece if you need to turn something in multiple stages. Also, because the machine is designed to be compact, the tool change system isn't as quick as on larger lathes. You'll need a small wrench to tighten the holder each time you swap a tool. That's not a deal breaker, but it does add a few seconds to each setup, something that adds up if you're doing many small parts in one session. Finally, the included accessories are fairly minimal. You get the basic spindle, chuck, and a simple tool post, but you'll likely need to purchase a dedicated steady rest or a larger collet chuck if your projects start to push the envelope of the stock size. In terms of overall value, the Proxxon PD250/E delivers exactly what its specifications promise: a quiet, vibration-free platform that lets you turn steel, brass, and aluminum with a degree of precision that most entry-level metal lathes can't match. The price sits comfortably between a budget hobby machine and a professional bench lathe, making it a sensible middle ground for anyone who wants to get serious about small-scale metalwork without committing to a full-size shop. Just remember the size limits, the slightly slower tool change routine, and the